So guys, welcome back to the Lift Your Life podcast. I hope, as always, everyone is doing absolutely wonderful. So as promised, I am back with another amazing guest podcast, and I've been really hyped for this one. So if you guys have been listening and following me for a while, you will know that I have a psychology degree and I'm a bit of a geek when it comes to all things human behavior and psychology and mindset. And I've got someone on today who I guess we could say we're friends. Do you think we've crossed that boundary?
Yeah, I think we've crossed that boundary. We've been on a holiday together basically now.
Technically we have, yes. My good friends Tobias, who I met through the bit mentorship that I'm on, and we've met a few times now, and he's absolutely brilliant. And his niche and speciality is all about habit building. And you guys know my favorite book is Atomic Habits. I'm really passionate about this. I find it really interesting. So I thought this is one we've got to bring him on the podcast. We've got to discuss all things habits and just hear of all the knowledge bombs that he's going to bring today. So I'm going to do a really awkward thing for you now. I'm going to make you introduce yourself, give fun fact. You know that awkward question you get at interviews? Tell us a facts about yourself.
Yeah.
I'm putting you in that spot now. So introduce yourself, who it is you coach, and the fun fact about yourself.
So my name is Toby or Tobias. And currently just like Lucy run like a online coaching business called Tobias Lifestyle. Been doing it properly all in since October 2020. Was a in-person PT from 2015, so 6 years doing lots of hours in person. But I'm sure, like a lot of PTs at the moment, there was just a factor in me that I was not getting the results that I knew I could, because you're just spending 1 hour with someone talking about what their weekend was like and counting their reps and trying to have the same conversations over and over again without having to have any control over the behaviors and decisions that they make. So that's why I just went, you know what, even before online started kicking off, before COVID, I started to think about it about 2 months before that, March 2020. So I was sort of already thinking about it, and then COVID obviously kicked off, and then it sort of grew pretty quickly. So that's sort of my intro into online coaching and PT. We, as a coaching business, we specialize and have built all our systems around trying to, or teaching our clients actually why they failed with certain behaviors in the past and why have some succeeded, and actually what is it that is the difference, rather than just going, I couldn't be asked, or I'm lazy, or all those self-sabotaging thoughts. Is actually, no, it's not your fault. It's just actually, what is it in terms of behavior design has made you fail versus made you succeed? So we teach this knowledge, we teach this theory, and then we help our clients, we guide them through making very small changes and being able to introduce new small behaviors that hopefully become so automatic they sort of forget they're doing them. And if you can do that, then people don't have to try carve out 2 hours of extra time a day to meal prep, or every so often, all those times tracking calories. They don't have to try like forget or remember. So we basically just try to teach our clients these small behaviors that become habitual. You don't have to constantly rely on your willpower, because we know that fails a lot, and you don't have to try carve out all this extra time, which a lot of people are busy. So that's what we specialize in, and yeah, it's working well, and super passionate about it, and really enjoying it. Basically flipping health and fitness on its head, which a lot of us are trying to do, as we know it's what's been set up is not the best for sort of people who are trying to better themselves through social media and things. So yeah, that's quite a long intro, but hopefully that helps.
Definitely consolidates it. And what you said there at the end is absolutely spot on, in that you're basically taking it to that next level. And I think now in this industry we have to take it to that next level. I think the days of just diet and training are just long gone, because we know that humans are so much more than that. And if you want people to actually get like results, we need to go beyond just, well, I have 3 pillars in my coaching, 3 things that we work on. It's diet, training, and mindset. And I guess mindset kind of comes into sort of habits and behaviors as well. Because if you have the perfect diet and training plan, it's pointless, right? Without the right mindset, behaviors, habits in place, because it's not going to work.
Yeah, it's what you do. It's all those behaviors that you do across a week, which adds up to a week, which adds up to 3 months. It's all those little things, all those tiny decisions that you do that you don't really give much thought to. And if you can introduce new behaviors that become so automatic that you don't have to use a lot of mental energy, if you can introduce new behaviors that are aligned with your goals, that every day you did them, one, you're going to feel super good about yourself because you're actually achieving something and not failing. But also, you're just adding those 0.5% without really realizing it. And yeah, like our results take longer than a 12-week transformation, but people come to us not wanting to just look good in a bikini in 6 weeks and then forget about it. They're coming to us going, I've tried everything, Slimming World, diets, and I just can't keep the results for more than 2-3 months. And that's why they're coming to us. So we sort of attract those people who are looking for like the real long-term change rather than just, hey, I want to look good in 12 weeks time, which is what we're fine. We're fine with that. Yeah, so it's results take longer, but we that's what we market. That's what we say. Look, results going to take longer, but if you're okay with that, then it's going to be a positive journey.
Yeah, I guess it's like it does take longer, but you will have the results for longer.
Yeah.
And I think it's hard to market that though in today's society, right? Because I think everyone's got Amazon Prime thinking at the moment, because we all want and expect things very quickly because we can get things very quickly. But when it comes to things that are being habits and behaviors that are more ingrained, and mindset shifts and mentalities, they aren't something which change overnight. Unfortunately, there's no supplement that fixes it. There's no just do this and then that'll change. It's a consistent working process. It's like building a new skill, isn't it? And I think that's what people don't see it as. Like, you're not going to be a pro ice skater tomorrow, but if you wanted to be, you'd have to accept, well, it might take me a year to be there. Or if I want to ride a bike, I'm not going to ride a bike the first time I get on it. It takes a few weeks, a few attempts, because you just have to build up confidence and build up practice and fail a few times and realize that you can still get back on the bike. And I think it's really good to see other people actually promoting that, because I'm sure you'll see yourself, like 6-week this, 12-week this is what we can do in 12 weeks. And it's like, yes, you can, but can you sustain it? And no one really talks about that.
It all depends on your goal. If you just want to look confident on the beach, absolutely go for it. But yeah, I feel like there's a real big proportion of people who are like desperate for people to show them how to feel positive and keep the results for 5-10 years. And I feel like we've just got to keep knocking at the door with our message, because like I said, it's not sometimes naturally what people want to hear. Or what results might take 6 months. Like you said, people don't necessarily are attracted to that, but actually when you get to talk to them, it's like, so you failed for the last 20 years, so something has to change. And that's why that's probably our difficulty of just trying to convince people, actually you need to spend time. And like you said, it's a skill. This habit learning, this behavior, it is a skill. You don't just, again, the classic now coming into debunking of habits, you don't just stick to something for 21 days and 66 days, and then on the 22nd day, oh bang, so because it's been 21 days, that's now a habit. Or on when you get to the 63rd day, because you've done this new habit every day for 66 days, the 67th day, sorry, it doesn't just become a habit. It doesn't work like that. And that's the one thing that annoys me, when people say, if you do this behavior for 21 days or 66 days, it's going to become a habit. And it's like, there's a lot more to it than just repetition. You have to learn, one, is it something that you want to do? 2, is it something that you're able to do every day in terms of ability? And 3, what is it that is reminding you to do this behavior? Because no behavior happens without a reminder, whether you know it or not. Whether you go to the toilet, you've got an internal system to hormones and signals to go, you need a toilet. When your phone rings, what happens? It makes a bloody loud noise, so you know when to pick it up. A delivery, someone knocks on the door. When you're hungry, you've got hormones to specifically tell you when you're hungry. So like every behavior that we do, we have a reminder. So when you're trying to introduce a new behavior into your life, you need to be able to set up the right reminder, the right prompt to happen at the right time. So there's so much more to than just saying, if you repeat this behavior for 66 days, it's going to become a habit. That's probably the biggest myth that I can probably say on this podcast about habits. 21 days or 66 days, if you see it, just ignore it. Just completely read past it, because there's so much more to it.
Absolutely.
People don't realize.
It assumes as well that all habits have the same ease of formation, because some obviously are going to be easier than others based off past experience, but we can definitely go into that a bit more in a bit. My sort of next question would be, what got you into this specifically? Because you've been in this industry for a long time now, and we all kind of go down our own path of finding something that we're passionate about. And from experience, speaking to other coaches, that sort of passion and niche tends to be very much something that they've experienced or they've encountered, and that's why they're passionate. So someone's maybe gone through a bodybuilding prep and then they've had like a really poor relationship with foods, and then they've gone into sort of being sort of a food relationship centered coach, or they do bodybuilding, so they do bodybuilding prep. Like for me, came from a very place of very bad, low confidence, low self-esteem, and it just was horrible. It was a horrible place to be. Got into fitness, felt more confident, and it's changed my goddamn life. So that is why for us, it isn't just diet and training. It's looking at mindset shifts and helping the person feel confident from the inside out to level the hell out, live their life. So for yourself, where did this come from then? Where did this passion and energy and want to just kind of focus on this come from?
Yeah, so there's a bit of a journey really. So from like 14 years old up to like 15, 16, heavily into rugby, we started introducing sports and conditioning or health, all that side of it. The lifting, the sort of slight bodybuilding, the conditioning. So that's where I started to just pick up. And then actually when I finished uni, when I became a PT in 2015, literally I had like probably a life-changing experience with mental health, and had a huge episode breakdown of anxiety, depression, just for a relationship, religion, don't need to go into that. But yeah, it was my life literally just turned upside down. And then after that, I really had to find ways to manage my anxiety, lots of therapy, but actually health-wise, I had to really think about like alcohol and sleep and exercise and all these, like you said, we've got our own 5 pillars or 5 circles of health. And I was just starting to really get into circadian rhythms, trying to energy, sunlight in the morning, sleep, etc. And I got really into that. So I started to go down the massive route of like circadian rhythms, of trying to help people actually sleep better, trying to get them to feel more energized, etc. So sleep was a real big part of mine, alongside training, nutrition. So that was for a couple of years where I was, really getting really into the circadian clock, circadian rhythm aspects, and how to strengthen that for a lot of people to just generally feel more energized and healthy. But then it was throughout lockdown where I was like, again, probably the most second life-changing or light bulb moment, where I was on the treadmill in lockdown in my garage, and I just had this massive light bulb moment, as cliche as it sounds. But I was just thinking, as coaches, like, and I know all this knowledge about how to better sleep, how to get someone to lose weight, how to, train better. I was like, I know all this knowledge, but why is it so difficult to get the other person on their end, clients, to do what I know they should be doing? And I just felt like there's this huge gray area in between of the knowledge that I know and trying to get this client to do these behaviors that I know if they did them, their life would change. But there was this gray of just going, what is it that is like, what is this gray area? And I started listening to a couple of podcasts, a couple of books, read some articles, and just that light bulb moment of just going, life is all about these behaviors that we do subconsciously, and these habits. Habits equal routine. Routine gives us structure. Structure equals results at the end of the day. So I was just like, if I can learn why a behavior sticks and why a behavior doesn't, and I can find a way to teach my clients that, of going, hey, you want to get to here, I know how to get you to implement these behaviors to get you there. And it was just one of those moments where I was like, this is it. I'm gonna change the world. And obviously I'm on the process, I'm trying to do that. But it was just honestly a huge light bulb moment in my garage on the treadmill. And just, this was like the solution to that gray area of, I know this, how do I get that person to do that? Like, if I can teach them how to do that by habits and behavior, life's a good one. So that's where we're at.
Amazing. It's always on like a treadmill or in the shower or something, isn't it? It's never on a walk.
Yeah.
But it's usually when you're moving, like I do genuinely find that when you are detached from work or detached from something and you're just doing something else, that's when you have the capacity to come up with your best ideas. Like I always get my biggest, like say light bulbs just on walks and stuff, or just like sat chilling. I'm like, oh.
I find it so annoying because I go for a walk and I'm like, I'm going to put my phone away. I'm not going to use it. And then I'm out on the walk and I get a huge idea and I'm like, I need to get my phone out again. And then I end up going back on my phone. I'm like, I just want to stay away from my phone, but I know if I don't write it down, I'm going to forget it.
It's
but
gone.
it really annoys me because I'm all right. And half an hour with no phone, we're all good, technology free. And then I'm like, I need to write this down, and I've got no pen and paper. All right, the phone comes out, and then we're back on Instagram, and it's like, oh God. But yeah, I get what you mean.
You tried, and that's the main thing.
Yeah, I gave it a go.
Once you had this light bulb moment, then, so if someone wanted to go down the route, let's say they had the light bulb moment of like, right, I really want to help people with, like biomechanics, like there's biomechanics courses out there. If someone said, for example, I really want to help people with like healing food relationships, there's lots of like courses on like, you know, like counseling therapy. There's lots of books out there that I'm aware of. So where did you start to learn this? What, like, there's no like uni degree, there's no specific courses that I know of. So what did you actually do to kind of build your knowledge and skill set with this?
Yeah, so it started with podcasts, just like, you know, Dr. Chatterjee, he does loads of, he's got like hundreds of podcasts, but it was just, he had a couple of guests on who touched on it. And then I obviously came across, everyone knows James Clear, Atomic Habits. And obviously from what I believe, James has taken lots of information, lots of research and studies, and he sort of put his own spin on it and combined it into his book. And obviously at the back of the book there, he's got all the citations, every piece of work that he's used. And I just went down basically just a rabbit hole. I just went into those and then, you know, searched up the research, what was the study, and then that led me on to another person, that led me on to another person. And there's no like one thing where I'm like, that was it. It was just, I just started reading, and it's just like YouTube. You start reading something, you get down to a rabbit hole, they then reference someone else, you then go onto there, they might have a book. And it was just getting my head around what James Clear said, all these different parts, and like you sort of find which, you know, you can't learn every aspect of it because everyone's got their own spin, but it's just finding, you know, different sections of Atomic Habits, and just finding what really resonates with you. Because you can't practice everything, but it's just, you know, it's I just went into a complete rabbit hole with the studies and the research in the back of his book, and that, like I said, that just led me on to something else. So I you know, I've put in a lot of time. It's not like I said read one book and I was like, right, I know habits. It's, you know, it's many hours of reading, and obviously I've been practicing it for 2.5 years now. So I've come up with systems that I believe is the most effective to be able to teach what I know to my clients, especially across online, right? It's, you know, you've got to come up with good systems. So yeah, it's been a long, not long 2.5 years, but it's been ever evolving, just like all our businesses are. It's just always evolving.
Absolutely. So I remember when we were at the Dubai event, you actually did a little sort of talk about this, and I don't think it was meant to be, and it ended up just being this like really awesome talk talking about like the 3 sort of key things that allow a habit to happen. I know you mentioned it just then. So I want to dive into that because I found it really fascinating, and I was quite aware of, quite aware of this because we did a lot of things like behavior change and stimulus in my psychology degree throwback, but we did. But not to the extent that you did, because with like psychology, the degree, it was all very much like textbook. But obviously what you were saying is very real world sort of applications and real world to what it is we do, and, you know, the actions that we take in the realms of health and fitness. So are you all right to kind of just dive into that and explore that a bit more as to help people understand? Because everyone thinks habits, they just think, I just need just to repeat. I think repetition is the mental idea of it, just repeat. But it's more to it. And I'll let you take the floor with this one to explain it.
So what I would probably say, if there's one thing you're going to take away from this talk, is emotions create habits. And honestly, like that phrase is the sole reason why you continue something when you don't. So what I mean by emotions create habits. So there's a reason why the behaviors that you do at the moment, like daily, weekly, without much thought, there's a reason why you do them, because they make you feel good, whether that's a good in terms of in line with your goal, or a good that isn't, like eating chocolate, for example. If you're trying to lose weight, your brain can't determine whether what you're doing is good for your goal. It just goes, does this make me feel good? Releasing those hormones, those serotonin, this dopamine, all those sort of hormones. So emotions create habits, and the example that I like to use is Instagram, which basically debunks the whole it takes 21 days or 66 days, right? So apps these days, Instagram is a prime example, is specifically designed to make us feel good. Think how easy it is. It lets us know when we've got a like, when someone's commented. Think how easy it is. I think it's like 3 clicks to post an image or something. It used to be like 3 clicks to post an image. Why have they got so many filters? Because they make you feel like you're in control. You're like a little photographer because you're able to manipulate all the colors. So the app is designed to make you feel good. It's designed to release these hormones. So everyone I asked, I'm like, how long did it take you to become a consistent user of Instagram? I don't know, maybe a day, maybe 2 days, maybe even 30 minutes. I'm like, well, did it take you 21 days or 66 days? Well, no. So, well, there you go. Well, there's the complete debunk of it doesn't take repetition. If something makes you feel good, brain-wise, your brain is going to go, I like that. I'm going to do that again. And that's as simple as it can be in terms of as an overview of why you're probably doing something and why you're not. Chocolate. Why do so many people like chocolate? Because again, it makes you feel good. It releases those hormones. But again, your brain doesn't know that chocolate isn't good for your goals. It's just like survival instinct. Is this good? Cool. I'm going to want to do that again. So that's on a surface level. Emotions create habits. So when you're trying to do something that someone told you to, I should be doing this, deep down, if you don't actually have any desire to do it, your chances of succeeding and implementing this habit is much, much lower, because you're going to have to rely on so much willpower and energy to keep something up that you don't really end up wanting to. It doesn't make you feel good, right? That's on again, that surface level. So on like a deeper level, actually, what is a habit, right? People get very confused with what a habit is. So a habit, when it comes down to definition, I haven't really found, like, it's not like you go into the dictionary and it says habit. I've sort of like formulated this. I don't know, I might have used someone else's, but to me, a habit is a repeated behavior that you do, I would say, relatively under the radar. So like, obviously you don't, you're probably thinking about it, but you're not actively like really thinking about it. So a behavior that's repeated, it just happens. It just happens, quite subconsciously under the radar. For me, that is a habit. Now, a habit is basically a behavior. So I try to get people to think as a habit as a behavior. Now, what are the common habits that people see on Instagram? Like, I'm in the habit of walking 10,000 steps. I'm in the habit of going to the gym 4 times a week. I'm in the habit of drinking 3 liters of water. That they are not habits. They are desired, they are outcomes. They are like routines. So if you think about it, back to the definition, a habit is a repeated behavior that happens under the radar subconsciously. You don't go to the gym 4 times a week subconsciously. Think how much mental effort and steps is needed to complete 4 hours of working out. For us, we're able to do it because our internal motivation is a lot more, because it's our job. We make money from it. That's how we pay our bills. It's a part of our marketing. So our internal want is generally higher than the average person. Hence why we're able to go to the gym more often than not, because we have such a desire. For Gen Pop people who aren't athletes, to call them habits, it's not, because if you think about, so coming back to the habits, the habit equals a behavior, right? Now, sometimes loads of small behaviors back to back in very quick succession can also be a habit. Like if you think about going to the toilet, you go to the toilet, you probably flush, wash your hands, dry your hands, and you're out in 30 seconds. You probably don't think about that. So actually, you can have multiple small habits, behaviors that equal a habit. But to think about drinking 3 liters of water as a habit, that they're outcomes, they're more routines. Unless you drank 3 liters of water in one go without thinking, which no one does, that could be a habit. So hopefully that sort of just helps determine that actually, when people are saying, I'm in the habit of, my brain goes, so you're basically saying you're in the routine of doing this repeated behavior subconsciously. So just start to hopefully determine the difference between like outcomes and routines versus habits. Because once you understand that, then when you're like, wow, I really struggle to get into the routine of going to the gym 3 times a week. I'm like, well, because they are not habits. You're just trying to do this huge outcome every week. You're trying to do this huge desired aspiration. So that's the first thing I like to say, is just actually, try to determine the difference. But then when you get into the depth of it, is behavior equals 3 components, right? Motivation, I've touched on it. The amount of, I should be doing this. All these people are consuming, probably our clients are consuming. Okay, so I should be trying to gym 3 times a week. I should be trying to walk 10,000 steps. I should be trying to drink 3 liters of water. I should be probably tracking my calories, meal prepping. And yeah, all right, cool. So I should be trying to do, and oh my God, how many shoulds is that? And obviously people are probably parents, full-time jobs. And actually, do they have actually any sort of, not passion, but do they actually want to do some of these things?
Should is an external drive, isn't it? Should is I feel like I should be doing that. So it's coming from the external rather than the internal.
Which can obviously, I'm not saying not to do that, but sometimes that works, but sometimes it doesn't. Like if you told someone to do something that they don't really want to do, can you expect them to keep that up for the next 6, 12, 18 months? But there has to be some sort of internal intrinsic want from this person. There has to be. That's the first thing, motivation, right? So that's generally really needed. Quite obvious, but sometimes when you explain the intrinsic, people are like, well, I've been told I should track calories for the last 10 years and I've always struggled. But actually, are you just someone who just finds an absolute ball ache and you just hate it? Well, there's no probably a big reason why you haven't been able to continue it. So that's the M. The other thing is ability. Now, this is the big one, right? Ability is basically how easy or hard something is to do. And evidently, when people want quick change, they want to lose X amount of stone, they want to fit into these clothes, they want quick results, as most people do. We're impatient. So what do people do? They go for the methods, they go for the routines that will get quick results, tracking calories every day, going to now suddenly gym 4 times a week, upping their steps to 10,000. Yeah, if you did those, you'll get quick results. But if you're honest with yourself, how hard is it for these new behaviors to continue? Probably for a lot of people who don't move that much to suddenly go from 0 to 100, they're probably 80, 70, 80, 90 out of 100 in terms of difficulty. So when one of those letters is missing, either the M or the A or both, the behavior is not going to continue. So if something's too hard to do, you're not going to continue it. So you have to find ways to make it super easy so you can get the consistency. And that
screams out to me that that's just January all over, isn't it? And that's why we never keep anything up in the new year. Like 0 to 100, it's just not doable.
Yeah, they have this huge burst of motivation. They then match that high motivation with really hard, high difficulty behaviors that they're trying to do. And then 2 weeks later, when their motivation, which is obviously influenced by many, many, many things, weather, illness, stress, whatever it is, when that motivation drops below the ability, you stop doing the behavior. And the last thing which I touched on was the prompts. So like, what's reminding you? So I always like to give this example. So before I learned all this, I was trying to take supplements, right? As I was just like, cool, supplements. So I didn't learn any of this stuff. So I found myself naturally, as probably most people do, setting up a reminder on my phone at 10 a.m. Because obviously for an alarm and a reminder, you have to set a time. So I set it at 10 a.m. and I was like, cool. Some days that works. It will go off. I will go take my supplements. All right, cool. The next 2 days, it didn't. And I was like, oh shit. And then it just kept going back. I had no consistency. But now I started to realize, okay, my prompt was happening at 10 a.m. But I was like, well, what if I'm in the middle of a call? What if I'm out on a walk? What if I'm out of the flat and that prompt went off? Well, I missed that prompt because it was on my phone, it was on my computer. So when I wasn't prompted, 2, if I was prompted and I was out the flat, it was way too difficult for me to stop what I'm doing, come back into the flat, take my supplements and go back out. And 2, the motivation wasn't there. So I was like, well, no wonder why my consistency is because the prompt wasn't happening at the right time. Sometimes I wasn't even prompted to take my supplements. 2, the ability was way too tough if I was prompted outside the flat. So I had to come up with a new way. So I started to use existing routines. So everything, I sort of sat down and went, what do I do every morning? And I always put my breakfast bowl in the dishwasher every single morning. So I used that as my new reminder to walk to my supplements drawer, because no matter if I did that at 6 a.m. or 10 a.m., I always did that behavior. So that's how I got around the supplements. And that was just a example of prompts and how sticky notes sometimes don't work, reminders sometimes don't work, alarms sometimes don't work, because you have to set them at a time. But what if you don't see that reminder, or what if that reminder happens when you're not in the right location?
Is that kind of like the idea of habit stacking, then like putting it into like a rhythm and routine? Because it's quite funny you say that, because I was the same with supplements. Like I was really bad at being like taking them. So I did the same as you. So I was like, right, every single morning as I'm making my breakfast, before I actually put the water in the bowl to make my oats, I'm going to put the water in my glass to then have that as a prompt to then take supplements. And it just, now I don't miss it. It's fantastic.
Well, there you go. It's you're using your reminder is something that you do every day, so you don't have to rely on an external time. You just, like I said, you might do that sometimes half an hour earlier, sometimes half an hour later. It doesn't matter, because you always do that routine. So, but alarms and reminders have their place as well. But it's just knowing what method to go down as a reminder. So the prompt is actually probably one of the biggest things that people go, oh, I've never really acknowledged that actually what's reminding me to do this new thing of taking water, sipping water, or doing a couple of push-ups, or whatever behavior you're trying to introduce. People don't, they just think, I'm going to rely on my brain to remember, but obviously we've got so much stuff going in here, it's not a reliable source, if that makes sense. So yeah, to summarize, a behavior, you need the internal motivation, it needs to be easy, and you need to find the right reminder for it. And you need all three of those to happen at the same time.
Brilliant. So when it comes to people coming to your service then, it's probably quite an open question, what would you say are some of the biggest or most common habits that you either change to want to shift or implement based off? I'm going to base it on sort of our niche, I guess, because the people who listen to this podcast, the people who work with us, are typically people who maybe have tried a lot of diets, Slimming World, and a lot of the habits are centered around more sort of food rather than the output that's causing them the biggest issues. So what would you say are some of the biggest things that you tend to work on, or the most pivotal things that you see, or prominent things is probably the better way of saying it, within your service that you work on with people?
So on our first initial calls, we sort of asked them, like, what's the, out of, like, I would say the three things that people generally want to do more of. It's like, what do you want to do first? What's the thing that you feel like if you manage to improve, it will give you the biggest return? So like either nutrition, planned exercise, or just daily movement. So we sort of asked that question to start with, just to work on one of those. But actually what we find is it's sort of not the answer you're probably expecting, but actually it's not necessarily what they're changing. It's actually the what happens to their confidence that they can actually stick to something, because so many people are used to failing. They're so used, when it comes to health and fitness, I'm talking about people, just everyday people who have a full-time job, who are just trying to work for that, look after the family, who aren't athletes, who aren't fitness experts because of their job. Those people who are just trying to change their lives and absorb all this information, they're so used to failing because the modern expectation, like I said, these shoulds, in my opinion, just ridiculous for people who have full-time jobs, etc. So they're so used to just sticking to something, failing, and they're just like and all the words that I hear on discovery calls is, I ask them, what's the biggest obstacle that's stopping you? It's either, honestly, I'm lazy, it's me, it's my motivation. So the people are blaming themselves, and it's not nice to hear and see how people are blaming themselves because they can't change. So actually our biggest light bulb moments is when whatever we set up, whether it is nutrition, movement, workouts, is we do it in a way that is achievable. And when people are able to consistently start to achieve something, that even if it is small, like the growth and the confidence and the mindset that we see is unbelievable, because they come to us going, I've managed to do this new thing for the last 3 weeks. And you can just see them completely change into like a huge identity shift of someone as an identity of, I fail at health and fitness. So now someone is, I can now confidently stick to something. So it's not necessarily what they're doing, which obviously obviously it does, but actually from the bigger picture from us, it's the confidence that people start to build, knowing that they can confidently stick to this new routine when they haven't been able to have that confidence in the past. If that makes sense.
It absolutely does. And that's one thing that we're really big on, is self-limiting beliefs is probably one of it will hold you back more than any like diet and training program will. Because if you don't believe that you can, that self-doubt will always kick in when you do have like a little struggle. And then it's like, well, I'm a failure, because you internalize that failure from the years of dieting or even sort of past experiences in childhood. It can stem really far back. Once you can start to actually realize that you can, it's like you're shifting that core internal belief of, I am a failure, or I failed, to, oh, I can actually do this. I could do this. And then that self-sabotage is less likely to kick in when you do have a bump in the road, because you don't automatically go into the, well, I failed, I am a failure, so I'll carry on failing, because that's what always happens, to this is a problem, it happens, and I'll just work around it next time around. Which,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's the people are, I think people probably don't know it, but they're thriving to feel like they're in control of their health and fitness. That's what I feel like people are desperately after, even when they, like I said, even if they don't know it, but it's that confidence that actually what they're doing they can stick to. And that's a big thing. It's a big thing. Like I said, it just changes your identity from someone who's a failure to, actually, I'm now someone who can succeed at health and fitness. It's when you explain it, some people think it's a bit wishy-washy, but I think until you can experience that change, it's hard to imagine what that change is like. Yeah,
and like it's completely true. Actually, I've had quite a lot of feedback from a few clients in their first sort of month or so, and like, I'll ask like how they're getting on, what have you been like your biggest wins, and they'll say, honestly, I just feel in control for the first time. I actually feel like I'm in control of it. I feel like I'm actually getting somewhere, and that's the stuff that will get the long-standing results, is that you have You're in control of your own future rather than the plan trying to dictate things. So what if you, with this, like, I want to change the world mentality, which we all do have within our coaching, then we were like, yes, crystalline world, I just want to, like, get everyone and move them away. What in an ideal world then would need to happen to the industry across like all sort of platforms, like the diet programs, the trade, just everything, in order to create a world where these things actually could help people long term? So what I'm trying to say is, what do you think are the biggest problems with a lot of the approaches that people do take, or the big approaches, which is why people are not getting the results from them that they want to achieve?
So I think I don't want to always blame social media, but I think social media is having an impact because people are following their people who they idolize, influencers. But unfortunately, what the influencers don't realize is just because they can do it doesn't mean their followers should be able to do it. So these people are absorbing this, just going, okay, this person's saying I should be doing all this. And it's like, I then attempt to do it, but then I can't do that. What's wrong with me? Okay, again, that's the rabbit hole. So it's until people start growing up, everyone says that everything they're passionate with, they wish it was a subject or they learn about it at school. But honestly, I don't see how we're going to be able to teach this, to change the world without it being taught early on, just about human psychology or human behavior or why you're able to stick something versus, do you know what I mean? It's otherwise you just get brought up with motivation is the king. And if you don't have it, then I'm lazy, then I'm a failure. And unfortunately, that's how many generations have been brought up like that through the media or through the slimming worlds or through the, especially now social media. It's just under, so hopefully people who will listen to this can just start to realize when they see their next influence on Instagram saying, to get better sleep, all you need to do, or you should be doing this, or to lose weight, you just need to do this. Hopefully your listeners can be like, oh, actually, maybe that's not the right approach because you can do it. This is what you're getting paid to do, right? This probably isn't the right approach for me. So if your followers can just take that away, at least that's now a positive that actually, cool, that's good for you, but maybe that's not a right approach for me. Or maybe I'm not going to follow that. So maybe I'm just going to go to Lucy and just go, hey, maybe should I try this? This isn't working. Maybe you should try, whatever it is. But yeah, it's again a bit of a wishy-washy answer, but it's a tough question, isn't it? Without having the power to be able to change all this.
It is. I do think it's really interesting to say that, because a lot of things in life we are sort of driven to believe that our success or adherence is motivation. Like even throwing back to like school days, right? So it was like, doing your revision or doing your homework. It's like, I'm just not motivated to do it. I just don't feel like doing it. And you can, I was like kind of in the mindset of, if I, want to succeed with my academics, I've got to keep motivated. I've got to keep disciplined. Motivation and discipline, isn't it? It's those kind of two words that get thrown around. You've got to be more disciplined. You've got to be more motivated. And
to me, they are very similar things.
I'd say they kind of in bracket, don't they? Really?
Yeah. And it's to try to determine, so I've heard I shouldn't focus on motivation, but I should focus on being disciplined. It's like, well, how do you be disciplined without being motivated? I don't know. So again, they are words that are thrown about a lot. Be more motivated, but you need to be more disciplined. And it's like, okay, cool. But then what's the next step? What does that mean? What does disciplined mean for a lot of people? So yeah, it's like once you start to understand behavior, then you can start to manipulate things rather than just going, my motivation is the issue, I need to be more disciplined. And it's like, okay, well, to me that doesn't necessarily help many people, but that's my opinion.
Yeah. In terms of your opinion, another one for you. So do you think a lot of people potentially kind of go down this sort of mentality of I just need to be motivated, or I just need to be more disciplined, because they're thinking short term? So a lot of people that I speak to when they're talking about health and fitness, I can sense that their mentality is very sort of short term. Like I want to lose weight now, or I just want to, lose some weight for how I feel for this summer, or for, for my younger life. Not many people are kind of thinking of like the long-term impact and the long-term benefits. So not just, thinking about things like, what we do from a training perspective now will benefit things like our bone density and joints later. So yes, we'll look awesome and sexy now, but actually from a health perspective, that's going to benefit us. And nutrition wise, yes, you might lose weight from it now and feel really confident, but also down the line, you're reducing risk of, diseases and other things as well. So people just think, right, I need to do this on a short term, so I just need to be motivated for the short term. Whereas we both know the benefit that people will have on their energy, their confidence, their health by doing this now, but making it a long-term solution. Do you think that's a problem we have as well in this industry, that people think in that mindset?
I think that responsibility then comes down to us and how we take people down that journey. It's just like with anything in life, we've got to give people what they want, but also we've got a responsibility to take them down a journey that is going to help them, I believe, in the long term. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with wanting to look a certain way for a wedding or Hindu or whatever it is, a holiday. That's just human. We are vain species where people don't want to. We like to feel good. We like to have reassurance. That's just what we are. Again, it just makes us feel good. So there's no point, you've got to address the elephant in the room that people like to feel good and look good, which is fine. But then I think it's our job to find a balance of going, cool, I can acknowledge that you want to look like this in 3 or 4 months time, but we don't necessarily have to like say, hey, do you want to join our coaching because your bone density is going to be great? Do you know what I mean? That we understand that. Again, it's the difference between what we know and what we understand versus the person on the other end. So it's, if we can guide people down that journey, us knowing that actually if they're able to do this, they're going to look good. And obviously we can maybe push that going, hey, you're looking great. But actually we know that their bone density is probably going to be much better. So it's in life, it's tough to get excited for things that are future, if that makes sense. It's our brain just can't quite, it's because it's too far away. So
we don't resonate with our future self, do we? See it as like an alien. It's like
so we've got to use mini focuses, 3-4 months at a time. But then obviously it's our job to then guide people through that, so they come out at the end of it better, rather than coming out it with a terrible food relationship, like Slimming World has done for a lot of people, right? They get them to lose weight, but in a way that they come out actually worse. And then we have to pick up the pieces. So if we can take people down this journey and get these mini wins along the way, every 12 weeks, looking good, chill out a bit for a couple of months, work on something, but actually if they can come out much better if they end the coaching or in 5-10 years time, then that's our job done. So I think that's where our responsibility comes in as a coach, and knowing when to bring up goals and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I love that you bash Slimming World then, because it's one of my favorite things to do. Out of interest, have you had people come to you from these sort of approaches, and what would you say are the biggest issues that come from them? Because that's something that we get a lot of people coming from, and listeners to us have come from these backgrounds, and there's a lot of food relationship work that we have to unravel, and a lot of mentality shifts that we have to unravel within what it is that we do. So it'd be quite interesting to hear what big things you tend to sort of have to unravel or unpick or change from people who maybe have come from these approaches for yourself.
So the consistent thing that we get is, again, on discovery calls, is the self-sabotage, that it's their fault and it's their lack of energy and lack of, or too much laziness. That's the one thing that we try change, of going, what you've been trying isn't your fault. It's just the design, the behavior design behind it has been completely set up to fail. That's our job, to try turn that around. And the other thing is the all-in, all-out mentality, which again links back to sort of diets, of going, if things aren't going 100% and I fail at 5%, then fuck it, I'll stop. So that's where it's actually going for us to try to explain, okay, if I ask you 2 questions, I always say, like, imagine in work, right? Your boss told you to do this new thing. In your head, if you did something small, but you did it every day for the next 4 months, versus you did it absolutely brilliantly for 2 weeks and then didn't touch it for 3 weeks, you went back to it for a week, didn't touch it for 2 weeks. Out of those 2 approaches, which one would you think is going to get better results? Every time they go, well, if you did something small but consistently, it's going to build up. And I'm like, well, you've just answered your own question. Let's now use that with health and fitness. So it's trying to unpick the all in, all out mentality, which I would say 95% of people that we speak to, I'm sure that you do, probably have that mentality. And we had a Slimming World lady who's still with us, who was actually at some point their like real show off person. Like, she lost loads of weight and they were using her a lot for advertisement. And the amount of work that we've done, the amount of times that she's burst and like cried because of just the light bulb moments of going, oh my God, I got treated like that. I was in the cycle of taking carrots to cinema, to friends, just all those behaviors, which is just soul destroying. Yeah. So we've done a lot of work, and that's unfortunately because of, I don't like blaming, but that was a Slimming World or a Slimming World equivalent. Completely did that to her, completely ruined her relationship with health and fitness and her food, which we've had to just unpick. And it's been 6 months, 8 months of it.
Yeah, it's definitely not a quick fix coming out of these sort of diet clubs and approaches, because it's not just habits and behaviors, it's
self-belief. So it's the emotions that they have attached to it, unfortunately.
Mindsets, it's the self-beliefs, the self-limiting beliefs, it's everything that comes into it. It's quite powerful, isn't it? Actually, it's quite powerful. That's definitely one for that's another podcast in itself. That's an entire series in itself, is that one. But just to kind of wrap things up then, if someone's listening to this and is really inspired and like, wow, yeah, light bulb moments galore, but they're like, right, I get it, but I don't really know where to start, like in terms of implementing this, how would you kind of say, right, let's say someone is in that boat of like, I really want to start to, lose weight, and like, I understand now it's not these big things, it's the little things. Where does someone kind of start in terms of self-auditing or actually implementing in order to make this happen for themselves?
So I would do a couple things. I would sit down and make a list of all the existing routines that you do every day, from the moment you wake up to the moment you fall asleep. Now, this is every day. This isn't just every so often. Write down the things that you do every day and just start to unpick of going, okay, how do I get reminded? So it would be to start to identify your own behaviors and your own habits, and start to realize, what do you do every day? And once you start to learn, okay, one, what's the motivation behind this? Like, for example, brushing teeth. The motivation is because we were told from God knows how young, this is good for our teeth, over and over again. There's a reason why, hopefully, majority of people brush their teeth, because internally we know if we don't, teeth are going to be, God knows what they'll end up with. So that's a motivation. So it's actually just start to realize and start to understand your own behaviors. What's the motivation behind it? Why do you do it? What makes it so easy? Like, for example, I had a call with a lady this morning who was really struggling with snacking. And I said to her, I asked her the magic question, what is making snacking so easy, these crisps and chocolate? And she said she keeps her snacks and chocolate in the same cupboard of where her plates are and bowls are. And I'm like, well, how many times? So every time you go to open that cupboard to get a plate out to eat, you're prompted by snacks and chocolates. And what's the ability? She said, well, all I have to do is just reach out and I've got her. So I'm just like, can you understand now why it's so easy? It's not that it's your fault. It's just because, one, you're prompted the whole time. Two, how it's so easy to grab a pack of chocolate. And three, obviously your motivation, because it's tasty, it makes you feel good. And she's like, well, okay, maybe it's not my fault. It's just actually the design behind it is terrible. So yeah, I would start to identify your own behaviors. Again, I keep rambling on, but what's your motivation behind it? What's making it so easy? Why is it so easy? Location, is it because you're so close to it, or whatever it is? And actually, what's reminding you? What's your prompt? So if you're hungry, we all know we've got hormones to let us know we're hungry. So start to realize what's reminding you. Is it because you see the time? Do you know what I mean? Is it because you've got notifications set up? So I think the big first step is start to understand your own behaviors and why they happen every day. And then once you understand that, you can go, all right, cool, I can understand now the behavior behind it and the reasons behind it. If that makes sense.
It does. And would you agree with the whole thing of like, the 21 days and all that shit is rubbish. But do you agree with the notion of focusing on maybe like a few things at a time? Because there is obviously that research to suggest that the more things you focus on, the less good you get at them. So would you say I'm going to pick one at a time to really focus on? Or would you say there is merit at maybe giving like a couple of things a crack at a time?
Maximum of, we never get anyone to practice more than a maximum of 3 new behaviors. So again, come back to the definition between outcomes versus habits. That's not saying we're getting people to try no more than maximum, trying to go to the gym 3 times and walk 10,000 steps and drink the water. They're not 3 habits. They are 3 huge like outcomes routines. When I say behaviors, is like a behavior could be to, after I flush the toilet, do like 5 squats. So like that's like one behavior, or like one new habit we're trying to do. Another one might be like, after whatever it's like for me, after I put my breakfast bowl in the dishwasher, I'll pour myself a glass of water. For us, that's a habit, that's a behavior. So we don't get, you don't want to try practice more than 3 new behaviors / habits at one time. That's what we recommend. That's what we've learned.
Brilliant. Love that. Fantastic. Well, that ends things really, really nicely. So I'm sure, like myself, many people listening to this will have found this pretty damn fascinating. And I know obviously you share lots of content on this over on ye old Instagram. So with that being said, if people are fascinated, which they should be, and want to find out more, learn more from you, where can they find you out?
Just Tobias Lifestyle _ on Instagram. And I don't think there'll be many Tobias Lifestyles _ hopefully. So you'll see a picture of this lovely face as the little icon. So you can't miss it.
Amazing. We'll definitely go give him a follow. He's absolutely brilliant. And obviously, if you've learned from this, I'm sure you'll go learn more from his social media feed. But a huge thank you for joining us and giving up your time today. It's been brilliant. And for everyone listening, I hope you found it useful, because I know I have. And I'll catch you on next week's episode.